Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The next chapter is entitled The Purification Dues. The linguistic meaning of the word zakat is, quote, that extra or additional amount which is taken from wealth, end quote. Another linguistic meaning is derived from the word denoting purity and purification from sin. The technical meaning of the word zakat refers to the taking of a determined amount of wealth from a specific person at a specific time and distributing it to a specified group. The author begins by saying, it, that is, the zakat or purification dues, is the second pillar of the pillars of Islam. Its obligation is amongst the necessary knowledge of the religion, similar to the prayer and the fasting. Anyone who denies the obligation of the zakat would therefore be considered a disbeliever by consensus. The author continues by saying, verily, it is narrated that the one who avoids it, that is, the purification dues, will suffer a great threat. For example, it has been narrated in the Majmu' of Imam Zayd bin Ali alayhi salam that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said, and is translated to mean, whoever consumes usury and refrains from the purification dues has made war against me in this world and the hereafter, end quote. Such prophetic narration establishes the punishment of the one who avoids the dues in both this life as well as the next. As for the preconditions for the purification dues, they are four. The first precondition is that the owner of the wealth must be Muslim. The non-Muslim is not required to render the purification dues. This is because the dues are a means by which the Muslim is purified. However, the disbeliever is not purified. Included in this condition is the person with intellect or without intellect. That is to say that the obligation of the purification dues is on the Muslim owner of wealth, even if he or she is a child or insane. The second and third conditions is that a lunar year passes over the owner's wealth while maintaining at least the minimum amount, Nissab. This will be discussed in further detail later, inshallah. The fourth precondition is that the minimum amount maintained is either completely owned, mutamakkina, for the whole year, or expected, marjuwa. In terms of the expected wealth, this refers to wealth that one anticipates receiving within the lunar year, like in the case of a repaid debt. One is to also count the expected wealth. Once the owner's wealth goes below the minimum amount, the purification dues is not due on that wealth. Next, the author establishes the general rule regarding the purification dues. He says, it, that is, the purification dues, must be in gold, silver, pearls, rubies, emeralds, money from business transactions, and crop yield. It is religiously obligatory to render 1/40, 2.5%, of the above after one lunar year passes over it. The author continues by saying that the same is the case with camels, cows, and livestock. That is to say that the purification dues are paid from livestock even after a year has passed over it. Excluded from the categories of things from which the dues are taken are the following: horses, donkeys, mules, slaves, iron, lead, estate, copper, or the like. However, if donkeys and mules are used for trade and commerce or profit, the purification dues is to be rendered from them. For example, if a person uses a mule for labor, one does not render the purification dues from it. However, if one is a mule rancher and the mule is a source of revenue, one renders the purification dues on the mule. Next, the author says, the minimum amount on Nissab regarding all these categories is well known. The minimum amount that necessitates the purification dues are the following. In the case of gold, the Nissab is once the weight reaches 20 mithqal, which is equivalent to about 70 to 73 grams. In the case of silver, the Nissab is the value of 200 dirham. As for the camel, the Nissab is once the number reaches 5 camels. In the case of cows, the Nissab is when the number reaches 30 cows. And in the case of sheep, the Nissab is when the number reaches 40 sheep. Although the author of this text does not discuss it, we wanted to highlight some points regarding the zakat on gold and silver. In the case of gold, the zakat is paid on it whether it is used for beautification and ornamentation or commerce. So this would mean that any gold jewelry that one owns must be weighed so that the dues are paid from it. The same is the case with silver. Also, regarding the purification dues on gold and silver, this is the only category of zakat which is combined. That is to say that the joint values of the gold and silver one owns is combined or are combined, and then the purification dues is paid from their joint value. So, for example, if a person owns 150 dirham of silver and 15 mithqal of gold, will he owe zakat? The answer is yes. Although the two amounts fall under the Nissab individually, their joint value will exceed the Nissab for one of the categories. That being the case, one would owe zakat from their joint value. Next, the author says, there is a tenth due on what grows from the earth and owned honey, if there is a revenue acquired from each. However, if there is no revenue acquired, then a fifth is due. We will dwell on this later, inshallah. The zakat is due from all of the aforementioned categories, even, the author says, if it is by moratorium or bequest. That is to say that the zakat can be paid from someone's wealth, even if a person bequeaths it in his or her will. The author continues by saying intention, that is to pay the zakat, is a condition when extracting or authorizing another to pay it on his or her behalf. Although it is absent from this text, it is stated as a principle in the text Al-Azhar that the intention to use wealth for business qualifies that wealth to be eligible for the payment of zakat. That is to say that when one simply intends his or her wealth to be used for a business transaction, that wealth becomes subject to payment of zakat. For example, if a person buys a commodity with the intention to use it in business, it is then considered payable for zakat at the moment the purchase of the said commodity is complete, whether that person used the commodity or not.